contact us and I didn't do that. Did I do that?
Did it.
I did that. Starting to see those signs on the fuel pumps in the gas stations again. Yeah, it says, I did that. Except it's not that Brandon guy anymore. Anyway, we accept referrals, Gib. Oh, no. Pat, can you fix that?
I don't know. I hope.
Well, it's lost the Zoom. You might have to re-sign us in. I don't know. Yeah, there it is. So Zoom meeting. Thank you. Yeah, great. What I want to say is one of the perks of membership, if you submit anything to us that ends up on our website, if you'd like to be credited for doing that, we'll put your name on the website, submitted by Justin or submitted by Gib or whoever, you don't have to do that, but you can. So everybody in the world will know that you're involved. I can't, I don't know if I can move this where I need it to be. There we go. Okay, I wanted to go back to the website here. And we also have a blog, and the same thing applies to the blog. I mean, if you have any kind of resource or information that you want to have added to our blog, current news, opinions, your opinion or somebody else's opinion that pertains to the work that we do, we'd love to include it in the blog. You know how blogs are, they can get long, but that's okay. Nobody's going to try to go all the way through it. You put something in the blog and 2 weeks later you put something else and whatever there was there before becomes history. The internet never forgets. We have an events page. We don't have a lot of events just yet. So we just made a couple things up, but these are the kind of events that we're going to have in our organization. So y'all want to get involved in, we're going to be doing field trips. We're going to have, virtual meetings. We're going to show films. We got a lot of plans that are kind of in the work, but we just made a couple of things up to put on the website so you could see what the calendar was going to look like. And I'm personally not real fond of the word donate, but that's what invest means, because we're not really asking you to be charitable. We're asking you to engage in justice. And that's why I like the word invest. But it's still the same thing. We're asking you for money. Okay. Okay, so I guess that's about all I have to say about the website, except that it's really exciting that it's going to be out there in 4 weeks, and the rest of the world is going to find out what we're doing. Are there any questions, comments, suggestions from the floor? Or I'll hand the mic back to Pat. Or maybe Maggie, would you mind bringing the microphone to Bob?
Thanks, Steve. I just want to know if the blog is curated at all. I mean, if people come and start making all kinds of wild comments, what happens with that attempted post?
There is actually a second microphone in that box right there. I just had.
Oh, if you want me to get it.
Yeah, thank you. Bob's question is very pertinent and timely, because right at the moment, I happen to be the only, Pat and I are both kind of learning how to manipulate the website. But we want to have a committee to do just exactly what you were suggesting, to manage the submissions so that we're not putting all kinds of wild stuff. We don't want that. But I don't. Well, my own wild stuff, that's different. No, the idea is to have, 3 or 4 people who would be willing to look at what other people submit and make sure, for example, that it's reasonably accurate and that it's not, we need to have some kind of boundary beyond which things are out of bounds. And I personally am not terribly comfortable being the only one doing that. I would like to have a couple other people that are willing just to do that, even if they don't know how to manipulate the website. But if there is someone present who knows how to work with a WordPress website and would like to join us to do that work, raise your hand.
Any tech people here?
I'm actually learning WordPress right now, but.
Are you interested in doing that, Justin? Oh, man,
Awesome.
bless your heart. Look, I'll talk to you after a while. And of course, you signed up right when you came in. So I'll get in touch with you via email if we don't get a chance to have a conversation today. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, Gib.
Oh, wait. They can't hear us on the Zoom.
I understand. This one on?
Yeah, look
I-
for the
I
little
don't-
blue light.
Okay. Oh yeah, I'm reading my words up there now.
There you go.
Will there be an announcement when the website goes live? And if we gave our email address this morning when we signed up, will we get it?
Yeah. First of all, you betcha. And secondly, if you signed up today and you become a member, then you also can subscribe to our listserv, which Maggie manages, and you'll get all kinds of, whatever we're up to, you'll get the announcement through the listserv, whether or not it's posted on the website. But this website is such a big deal. We've been working on this for like months. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'm going to get a megaphone and drive all over Asheville with the megaphone hanging out the window. The ABLA website is up. The ABLA web, because it really is a big deal.
Well, the other big deal that I don't know if you all when you plan to mention this, but we just received our official nonprofit status. And that also deal and took a long time. Yes. That's all I wanted to say about that.
Okay, so are you finished?
I think so. Unless there's
Any
any other.
questions? Yeah, comments, suggestions.
I think I turned it off. Oh, thank you.
Okay, well, next on our agenda, I think you have your agendas there in front of you, is the membership. And we really are trying to get more members. We've sort of done it word of mouth, more or less, but we have the faith groups and other organizations that sponsored the conference back in 23. And so that gave us a good start, but we need to grow. We need to have more members. And I'm going to pass this around. These are paper membership forms, but if you want to do it online, there's a QR code here or the URL that you can just sign up online and become a member. We hope with your membership that includes making some kind of donation because that's the only way we have, the only source of income we have is through membership. So I will leave this up here if you're in, or we can just pass this around as well. And Maggie is coordinating the membership team. We have one person, Curry, on the back row there, has agreed to be focused on organizational memberships. This is not something we've done before. But if your group, the organization you belong to, would like to become a member of ABLA, we would welcome that. We hope we'll get lots of organizational support. It may not be the right time for this year. A lot of groups have already approved their budgets for the year, but keep it in mind for ongoing years. This is an annual membership thing, and so you pay some dues this year, that doesn't last forever. It needs to be repeated next year. And I'm going to give the mic. Already have a mic, Maggie. Do you want to say anything else about membership?
Yeah, I would like to remind you all that our work is about becoming better allies of the Cherokee. And in order to do that, we have to do some programs to educate the community. And in order to do that, we have a commitment to honor each Cherokee speaker with a significant honorarium. So, or a respectful honorarium. So our money is going towards speakers, programs, and field trips, things like that. So it's not that we're trying to grow this organization for the sake of the organization. No, this organization sprang up out of a need for us to be in better relationship with our local tribe. So that's what the money goes for. Just want to be sure you know. Yeah, John.
I think it would be a good idea to mention the fact that we have a chair. I think it would be a good idea to mention, those of you who can put some detail on it, that we have a Cherokee advisor who meets with the board. I think that's important and significant.
And not only that, but Shannon Swimmer, who's our advisor, and we were hoping she could pop in today. Oh, hello. There's Jakeli. Jakeli. Jakeli, sorry. Shannon was just, she's a former director of the Cherokee Center from Western Carolina. She's also a former judge in Cherokee. She's a lawyer. She helped us with the website, with the nonprofit status. And she was just elected to the tribal council along with 3 women. Are there 4 of them or 3? I think there are 4. Right. Thank you, George. So we're very honored to have Shannon be part of our team, and she's been very, very helpful.
Okay, we were just mentioning, well, do we have volunteers to be on the membership committee?
Yeah. Yeah, what we need is to keep track of the members on a spreadsheet. And so anybody who has good spreadsheet experience would be very helpful. Anybody do that? Yeah, well, think about it.
Yeah, right. And if you're part of an organization, we would like to get a contact person. We have some contacts for some of our faith groups, different organizations, but not all. So before you leave today, make sure we have a contact for your organization. And we're still recruiting for a publicity team. And we already heard the website team and the membership team. So there's lots of opportunity to volunteer. You don't have to just come to meetings. You could help us with some work. So we're ready for the treasurer's report.
Okay, thank you. I'm not going to bore you with a lot of numbers. I will tell you, though, that we have about $1,300 in our bank account, and we're going to give some of that money to Jakeli, who is on our screen now. Welcome, Jakeli. And we look forward to hearing from you in just a few minutes. But we do, as Maggie was describing, we have a lot of plans in the mill, and we hope to have enough funds to take care of whatever the needs are for the plans that we're making. We don't have a lot of, outlay. We don't have an office. We don't have to pay for, we pay a pittance for our web server, which is kind of wonderful. We don't have a lot of overhead. Almost all of the money that we take in is going to to fulfill our goals, and that's about all I have to say as your treasurer. Except to reassure you that whatever money you invest in our organization will be well spent.
All right. One other detail here is we have a couple of board members that have worked with us, but they have not come to you for formal approval. So we're bringing those names to you today. The first is Curry first. Please stand up, Curry, so they can see you. And Amy Arundel from St. James, thank you. Throwing a blank. Episcopal Church in Black Mountain. These people have been vetted and they're very committed, and we're just pleased and delighted to have them on the board. So we ask for your approval of these two people. All right. Any opposition? Thank you. Curry. Oh, okay. What word would you like to use?
We have become acquainted with these two fine people and are pleased to be able to call them friends.
All right. Use Jakeli or.
Oh, sure.
So we're ready to hear from Jakeli. Thank you. Welcome.
Jakeli, are you ready to be heard?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, great. I'm going to go ahead and put my glasses back on so I can pin you.
Take him to.
Oh, wait, we need to pin him on the other computer. Yeah. So Jakeli is actually Shannon's brother. And yeah, we're very glad to have become acquainted with Jakeli. As I mentioned earlier, he is a person who designed our logo. He does incredible graphic art. I'm going to let him talk a little bit more about that. And I hope that you'll be able to show some of your art. Is that going to be possible? Oh, that's awesome. Because y'all, well, I'll let him show it. I'm just personally, I didn't know much at all about graphic art and graphic artists and how the concept had evolved since I was young centuries ago. But Jakeli's art just fits right into that genre. And I'm just really eager to learn more about the symbolism in his art and how it speaks to how it conveys the messages that he seeks to bring into the world. So, thank you so much for being with us, and now I'll turn it over to you, Jakeli Swimmer.
Chill, Tegalai Ayuni Dagwado. It's good to be here. Galeli Gagedo. Yeah, as been mentioned, my sister is Shannon Swimmer. And I come from a very rich traditional family. That our last name Swimmer Ayuini is derived from a Cherokee historical figure named Ayuini, and he was paramount in the preservation of Cherokee stories, Cherokee traditions, and customs in the James Mooney book, Ethnography. And so we take a lot of pride in her name, but we also derive a lot from my maternal grandmother, Amanda Swimmer. She's the daughter of Running Wolf Sequoia. And I'm named after her grandpa, Jakeli Sequoia. And so the Sequoia side was also very paramount, but less well-known traditionalist And so a lot of what I'm doing is just a continuation of what my family's been doing for the tribe, and that's simply just advocacy work, preservation work, um, and just using our skill sets to the best of our ability. Um, I've been an educator for going on 15 years now, um, teaching Cherokee language. I was at one point the Cherokee archivist for the tribe. I'm currently a community cultural coordinator for the Cherokee Central Schools, taking over from Laura Penix, who was still a fluent speaker, still amazing person, but finally stepped away after 45 years of service. So she was my mentor. Um, so I have a lot of backing behind what I do, and kind of the work at, you know, the Alliance, as mentioned, as you all know, the way it's teamed Alliance for Beyond the Land Acknowledgement. And as we know, land acknowledgements became a very big buzzword thing a few years ago. A lot of organizations, institutions, and places started doing land acknowledgements. But as Native people and people of that land, it became more of a shallow gesture. And so that's kind of when Shannon told me about this group, I just said, that sounds great. And anything I can help to assist and do. And it was just at the time logo work. But in that logo, I was trying to connect with a lot of symbolisms, but not too much. So the pot within the logo is actually done by my wife's cousin, Darren Bark, who is an amazing artist. His work has been in the White House in Washington. So it's like he's a very renowned artist, and so he made that pot, and so I draw from family ties, and so I did that. The design itself, he said, is a water snake design, and so it's holding water, and within that water is Rattlesnake Mountain, which is a very important mountain in our community. It holds a lot of stories and medicine, and so I use that as a backdrop to a lot of my landscape backgrounds. The hands that are holding it together, Atukala, is Judakala, as it's been corrupted. It's kind of the he was kind of the steward of our land. He's a celestial, and so when you think about land acknowledgments, I want to acknowledge our true steward, our true celestial. And I just kind of put a Will West Long um, eagle wand on the top part. Will West being our first and only archivist back in the 19th, early 19th, late 18th century, and was also instrumental in the actual translations of my grandfather Ayuini to Mooney. And so for me, we carry a lot, as Cherokee people. And I like to always preference that I'm Eastern Band Cherokee. We are the protectors of our homelands. We do a lot to ensure that representation happens. And when I talk about representation, it derives around the fact that um, a lot of people, a lot of educated people, a lot of professional people, PhDs and doctorates and other things become experts in our culture and language. But they get it off the backs of our people, like my grandma and my family and other community members that are elders and cultural knowledge keepers. And so what my advocacy work a lot about is reclamation. And that reclamation means um, to take away from the word revitalization. You hear my community tribes, everything, it was a big buzzword like language revitalization. But our language isn't dead. We still have fluent speakers. We still have cultural keepers. So what the term reclamation is that we're reclaiming those spaces and places and markers of us, of our identity, and we're not reviving it. It's not dead. We're just reclaiming it. And so organizations as you all is just educating or being there for, the allyship that we get so that you can help, spread that knowledge out to, and even direct people to say, hey, I learned this from this Cherokee person, but they do these talks. Please reach out to them for like clarification or for further information. A lot of times in the past, we've had places just talk on behalf of us without including us. And so this is a step that we were striving to do, and that's something that I've always strived since I've been back in the capacities I've been in. And my art is a reflection of that. You know, it can be jarring. It can be funny though. It can be humorous. It doesn't have to be so intense and direct. The work I do is very draining. You know, there's not a day that I go by that, you know, there's something I think of, but sometimes I have to pick my battles mentally and emotionally, because it's becomes you become the spokesperson, and that's not what I want to be. I want to uplift others so that they can speak on their own. So my art is also a foundation for knowledge for my people. So when I put things out there, if it's a drawing, you know, as we've all found, symbolism and iconography can speak volumes. You know, people always talk about, you don't have to put Nike under a Nike check no more. People just say it's Nike. You know, you don't have to put an Adidas under Adidas anymore. It's just Adidas. For culture and traditions, that's what I'm trying to represent with my imagery, is that when I do an Uktana, which is a celestial being for our tribe, a creature that was created to protect us and save us. It got co-opted into being this terrible beast that we're afraid of, and that it's just mean and aggressive. And so what I do is re-educate my people to say, like, no, not everything was made. Nothing in our culture was made to hurt us. There was always the back end of it. If we defeat it, or we're able to succeed beyond that harmful entity, we reward it with things. You know, Nunyawi, or Nunya Ashino, or, you know, there's Stonecoat and Uklunda, Spearfinger. You know, Stonecoat, we were able to get rid of this celestial beast, and because of that, we were able to get songs and dances. We were able to learn all these traditional things and knowledge. Um, and so there's more to our culture than just what's been written, and that's kind of what I'm trying to do with a contemporary sense, is use traditional knowledge in contemporary spaces. And I don't know how much I can share. I know I'm on Instagram, and I have a website. I'm trying to bridge out more and blog more about some of the information I put out. Some of its responses to issues within Native countries. Sometimes it's responses to the administration, or just the colonial structure that, you know, America sits in. So yeah, I'm honestly just doing a lot of work, wearing a lot of hats. But what I say is, you know, key word I always say is foundations. I'm just laying a foundation for myself, and hopefully inspire other people to do similar work, and to use my work however they see fit, if it can help, you know, bring ideas together. Sometimes I draw things and people create their own, you know, what it means to them, and they will respond and say, "Hey, this really meant this to me." And I was like, "Oh, I didn't really intend that, but that's great that you could see, you could pull something out of it." Um, and so one of the biggest things is, and I know it's kind of a full circle moment, you know, you're in the Friends, you know, a Quaker house, and, you know, the Quakers were the ones that, you know, brought the boarding schools into Cherokee, and not necessarily to eradicate us as Native people, but to create a service education for, you know, a group of natives. Unfortunately, it was sold off later in the 1800s, and that's when the federal government got involved, and that's when Indian policy kind of changed a lot, and that's some of the detrimental things start happening within our community. But I think it's a full circle moment to remember these connections that we have as Cherokee people, or as Native people, and again, it's just kind of an institutional reawakening for some, like, you know, actually having Native people in the spaces making decisions or being a part of the decisions, whereas like a lot of things were well intended sometimes from non-natives back in early centuries, but they just were not, you know, fully supported, or they themselves didn't really understand the importance or the magnitude of what native identity or nativeness is. But yeah, I didn't know if anybody, I don't know how much I can share on my screen. I don't know. I know that at one point I needed to like send a link myself. I wanted to share things, but it's fine. Like I said, I have a website. It's aroundthebound828.com. I put it in the chat. They can share it with you. My Instagram handle is there as well. I'm posting you see semi regularly. I usually post at least once a week. And again, like I said, some of the stuff I touch on can be jarring, can be can be kind of a direct. But for me, it's something that is missing in our, you know, our spaces is our conversation, our responses, because a lot of times when you write, it's only seen by so much, and for my community, while you're writing to an audience of academics, and that you're writing in an academic way, now you're excluding your community members who might not know those buzzwords or might not know anything. One of my mentors, Wiggins, the gay show, like when he was alive, he was like, I don't know what this word indigenous means. And it was just kind of for him, it was that buzzword wasn't to his identity. He knew who he was, but we tried to co-opt sometimes buzzwords to reclaim things, but we're actually homogenizing and siloing the uniqueness of Native people. Like I said, I'm Eastern Band. I don't have a relationship with Cherokee Nation. I don't really know the history there. I don't try to know the history there because I think that's up to them. That's their realm, that realm. And I ask the same for Cherokee Nation people. It's like, hey, if you're talking about these mountains and these waterways, hey, why don't you let us in there as well? Can we share that understanding that we won't meddle in things that we don't know about? And can you not meddle in things you don't know about? But can understanding that we are Cherokee people and we will fight for those protections, and we will fight for those understandings. But let's understand that we are very unique as Cherokee people, and historically, we've always been that way. We were autonomous townships. We had lower towns, upper towns, middle towns, overhill towns, and those towns decided and made their own decisions. Some towns might go to war. Some towns might say we're at peace. That was not an infringement of like, you're not Cherokee, you're not part of our Cherokee tribe no more. It was just like they just understood. And that's a decolonial structure that our mindset, our individuality is important. Our separation and uniqueness is important. You can't, put us all in ribbon skirts and say we're native. Ribbon skirts aren't Cherokee. You know, Headdresses aren't Cherokee. Feathers aren't like wearing a headband isn't Cherokee. Wearing a ribbon shirt isn't Cherokee. What's Cherokee is the what's inside you, what you believe in, what you know, what's your foundations. When we don't worry about aesthetics, and that's kind of what we ask our partners and people to know is like, we're not asking you to look like us. We're just asking you to see us. And that's kind of what I think is very hard sometimes. It's very hard to get in these spaces and talk openly and freely. I was just at a conference yesterday, and Bo Carroll just got his PhD. He's the only Eastern Band archaeologist in that space. He did it for that reason. He needed to put us in there and be able to be at the table for things. But he said somebody had mentioned, we're recovering our mounds, reclaiming our mounds and lands. Niquosi, we just reclaimed, and the question was, it's like, when you do this, do you want to like, why don't you just check out UNESCO and get them protected sites? And Bo had a very, very straight point. It's like, we're not at a point, we're a very fortunate tribe to where we don't need to rely on federal funds to protect our traditional homelands. We did that our own. And he brought a good fact. When you're under like federal funds, sometimes it has to become monetized. Those sacred sites become monetized. Like Cahokia, it's not ran by a native tribe. It has to make money to pay for the upkeep, and so they've kind of commodified some of the things around Cahokia. That's the one I did with the Gadua. I don't want to have little signs and people be able to walk around and do all this. I just want it left alone, because that's our mother town. So he basically said, with UNESCO, like, I don't need to monetize my sacred sites. We can do that. We can protect it without money. We just need that protection. And I think it's a change in a narrative that you want to find everything, you want to protect everything, you want to study everything. But in actuality, you can learn everything to steward if you're just brought up traditionally and culturally. You know, me being brought up culturally, I know that sometimes there's not answers that you need to know. I know sometimes there's not a word for every single thing, living thing in the world. I know not everything has to be named or renamed or reclaimed and named. Sometimes a mountain's just a mountain. And I think that's something we have to understand, especially the premise of beyond land acknowledgments, is not everything needs an acknowledgement. You just need to have respect and understanding that you are in a place of Native people, and that your space and your being needs to be in that coexistence with that space. Because I've heard a lot like human beings are a plague on the world. We're not. We just we're plaguing ourselves of allegiances and ego. You know, our free thought has created a vacuum of singularity and not individuality. So we really don't understand that essence. But you look at Native people, and I'm talking across the world, are all over. I'm talking like Ireland. I'm talking like New Zealand. I'm talking about like the little tribes in Russia. Those Native people, they live with coexistence with the world, and that's what is beyond land acknowledgement. Living beyond a statement, living beyond an understanding and a word. Um, Cherokee language is a verb-based language. We don't worry about nouns. We don't have important nouns. We have the word for chief of Gunwa. It comes from Uku Moitoy. That was his name. It doesn't mean chief in our thing. That was just his name, and we brought it in because settlers needed a centralized figure, and because we're autonomous people, that if like that you're the main chief, you're the principal chief. That wasn't true. We had principal chiefs in every township. The chief was not the head, the decision maker. It was council and women's council. They made the decisions. You know, so that's the restructuring of our minds. Is that you look at our old Cherokee names? They weren't just Yona. It was Yono Waluk, screaming bear. It wasn't Ahwi. It was Ahwi Kadoga, standing deer. You know, Ayuini doesn't mean swimmer. It means it floats on top of the water. So we've gotten away from that because we restructured our brains to think in a non-Cherokee way, a non-native way. So we've preferenced nouns, we've preferenced acknowledgement, we've preferenced all these things that didn't make any sense to us historically. And so that's the rethinking, restructuring, and things that I educate on is like we have to do more, and we have to show our allies more in the sense of what we're looking for. We're not looking for just a seat at the table. We're looking for you to buy in and understand who's at the table and what's at the table. And so there's a lot that goes on a day-to-day basis. And I use a lot of quotes because I like to break down quotes. And one of the quotes was like, I'm my ancestors' wildest dreams," or I'm my ancestors' dream. And when I look at it and like, well, dreams are in a sense make believe. I'm not a dream. I'm a continuation of my ancestors. I'm a conduit of that. You know, my ancestors didn't achieve everything they would probably want. So here I am achieving what they could not, but I'm not going to achieve everything I want. And so as lineages go down, you leave a foundation for your descendants to say, like, my grandpa, my uncle, my cousin did this work, and I'm drawn to this work, and that's why I do it. That's why I do my work. I'm not a potter. My grandma and my dad were potters, amazing potters. I was around pottery most of my life, but I'm not a potter. I didn't really pick up on it because I was too intrigued with designs and histories and stories. But guess what? I'm also come from storytellers, history keepers. Ayuini, Running Wolf, told magnificent stories to our community. And what did I do? I took the storytelling aspect and brought my imagery aspect and blended them. So I tell stories. I bring information to my people and to my, to the outside, Cherokee people. I try to expand and let people know that this is how we really feel. Like it's not all handshakes and nods. There's some more work into it. Um, but yeah, I didn't know if you want to. I got plenty of time. I didn't know if anybody had questions. If you want anything posed, you want to ask me anything. If you want any clarification, I know it's just kind of informal right now. But I just wanted to open up kind of what I am and what I do and what I strive for.
Thank you. Well, we have a question back here at the back.
Thank you so much for what you said. Can you tell us more about your work in the schools? Are you currently working in the schools? I didn't catch that part.
Yes, I'm working at Cherokee Central Schools. I'm the community cultural coordinator. I work with partnerships around the community and in the state, bringing in educational models to the school system while also running the day-to-day operations of the cultural department. And that's building on the curriculum. We are the only tribal school in the state that has a Cherokee language curriculum and Cherokee language standards, history standards. And so that's kind of my day job beyond that. But I also do design work with my school for posters and informational, uh, classroom work materials.
And could you say more about what's being for Cherokee language living throughout Cherokee people community?
Yeah, so my mentor Laura had this good quote. I always say. She said, "The to save our language is not the preservation of our language; it's the application of our language. If we use it on a day-to-day basis, it will never go away." Now, when you talk about preservation, that word preserve, when we talk about any preservatives, what do you with jam? You seal it up, you leave it alone, it lasts a little longer, right? That's essentially what we're doing. We're commodifying and itemizing language. We're doing recordings, we're doing apps and everything. And we're putting this database all together. But that's just to store that language. It's not using it. So application is important. So in a school system, how do you increase 5% of your daily day language usage? What my goal is, and I tell people that going to Cherokee Central Schools, that you're not going to become a fluent speaker. You're going to have a foundation for language usage. You're going to have a foundation to have basic conversation. You're going to get introductory language. Now, people try to put things in parameters like, oh, the language fluency is at this level, level 4, level 5. This is how no, we're not testing it because language can't be tested. What we can do is apply it and grow from there. So what I do is like, all right, first week, shio shigwajan. Hello, how are you? Shio shigwajan. Now get personal. Shio shigwajan ayan zegi ayuini dagwado. Hey, how are you doing? My name is Jake Swimmer or Jakeli Swimmer. All right. Shio shigwajan ayan zegi ayuini dagwado. Kolonai de Guaynasha. Hey, how are you doing? Yeah, I'm Jakeli Swimmer. I live in Big Cove. Go a little further. Descriptives. You can offer that capacity. And that's foundational steps. That's introductory language. We're trying to create conversation. Can you have a 2-minute conversation? Can you have a 30-second conversation? A 30-second conversation is very, very hard. Like 30 seconds of pure language is very hard, and that's introductory. So what we do and what we term language, and as language learners, second language learners like myself, we're babies. We have to be treated like babies. We don't know the complexities. Just like when we're growing up, you don't go and get on a tractor and start driving it, a 6 speed tractor or whatever it could be. You have to learn what a tractor is, what's the values of it, what does it do, the safety, all this stuff. You don't learn. Might learn the work, but you don't go and you don't go operate the tractor. So for us, it's introductory. It's treating us as children, taking that. And so that's where language is with the tribe, and what I advocate for is the understanding of what language is.
Say, first of all, I want to recognize that Shannon is on our screen, even though she doesn't have her camera turned on. But I just want to say for any of the folks who are joining us via Zoom, if you have a question, please raise your hand. And Shannon, if you wanted to check in with us, please raise your hand and you'll be recognized. Thank you.
Question. I want to thank you very much. I learned more from you in 30 minutes than I did in history and all my education. And by far. And that because of that, I'm going to learn more. And my idea is, and I want to run this by the group and you, what if a group of us, maybe 10, 20, 25, would come down to Cherokee and spend a half a day, 3/4 of a day, or 2 hours with you and others, and not for us to show off that we're goody goodies, but because we want to learn and we want to support. Could we work something like that out? Is that a good idea?
Yeah, that's very doable. Like I said, with my new role as the community culture coordinator, I can bring things in, and we can schedule things around that. If you just want to, come to the school and sit and have a panel, just kind of do a Q&A or do a presentation, that's fine. It's just, coordinate. I can coordinate with Steve and coordinate with everybody here beyond the land acknowledgement, and say like, hey, we're having a field trip. I'll let the school know we're going through some construction right now, so it's just letting them know ahead of time. And again, we're a little freer in the summers as well, because after culture summer school ends, pretty much kind of uh open to programming, or bringing people to Asheville to do a panel or sit in and do something in their space. That's doable. I see my sister has her hand up, so I didn't know if she had a questions or answer.
Thanks, Jake. I wanted to recognize Shannon next before we took another question. Thank you.
Shio, everybody. So I am actually here heard Jake mention Gadua, our mound, and so that's where I am this morning. We're actually having a 5K for language revitalization, and so that's where I am right now, and we've got a pretty good turnout of people, and so it's awesome. The kids just sang in Cherokee, and so. Kind of a lot of what he was saying, is happening today, right now. We're encouraging people to use a little bit of Cherokee every single day. And so I'm just happy to be able to be part of this, to be part of both conversations, to be able to listen to what Jake is sharing with you all, and then also to be present at this event. We're getting ready to start the 5K right now, but I did want to say hi to everyone and acknowledge all the work that my brother does, and just express my appreciation. Shki.
Thanks. And we would be remiss not to express our appreciation to you, Shannon, for being present with us for a few moments today, but especially for being present with us at all times, whether you are on the screen or with us physically or just with us in spirit. We're always aware of you because of our connection to you, and we're just so grateful for you.
Well, I appreciate that, and just appreciate everybody coming out and the efforts to learn more. So, Shki, we're gonna take off now.
Yes. Can you hear me? I can't hear myself. Okay. Yeah, this has been a powerful, humbling experience. And I'm so glad to be here. I appreciated the idea from the new board member. I haven't learned his name yet in the back about coming and spending some time in Cherokee, a group of people. And in connection with that, I recently heard about something called the Big Witch Initiative. And I want to know if that seems like a viable route for those of us who are beginners learning to take from your perspective. I hope that's not a political question. I don't consider it political, but it's an initiative that's similar to what he was talking about that I've heard about. Know very little about it.
Yeah, I'm not aware of the Big Witch Initiative. I don't know if it's through Center for Native Health or I don't know. I'm not sure. I haven't really been in too many spaces. There's ongoing concurrent or programming that goes on that sometimes overlaps or does similar things. Right now we have Judah Color Kids, have a conservation group in our school system. They do kind of similar stuff. So sometimes it's just overlap. So sometimes it's just coordinating or just picking different days or if I find out what it is, I can ask them like what do they cover and what we can cover. Sometimes I just work on the educational components. Given that the school system is still basically a continued operation of a boarding school. The reason school system exists is because of the boarding school. So we've been operating since 18 something, so since the late 19th century, as a tribal school. So that's something we do that might be different. But again, I'm not really aware of the Big Witch initiative. I just know my brother lives up on Big Witch, so that's about it.
Tyson, yeah.
Tyson Sampson. Yeah, I think he does a lot more on the botany and food sovereignty. I think he does a really good job of that. I haven't spoken to him in a while, so that might be why. But I mean, he does a wonderful job. I think you're gonna learn a lot about, I think he's good. The way that Tyson does it is like he's really good about connecting that identity with place. He gets you tied to the land, and he adds the language component, being a fluent speaker. So I think it's definitely something that's probably going to be really you can get a lot out of.
Thank you.
Trying to get a program with Tyson for a while now. We're going to keep trying. He's had some health issues, but he was one of our original invited speakers for the conference in 23, and then he had a health issue. So we do plan to pursue Tyson.
Jakeli, Drew Reisinger here from the Register of Deeds office. Good to see you, man. And thank you, to what Curry said. We just spending the morning with you. It's great. It's so helpful to hear Native folks talking about this instead of white folks talking about this. And so we really just appreciate you giving us some time this morning. One thing I want to just put on your radar, you probably recently saw some news that one of the big mountaintops in West Asheville, West Buncombe, that was formerly named after some white dudes, that has been named after some white dudes. It hasn't been named that for very long, maybe 100 years or so. And there's some confusion as to if it's Spivey Mountain or Deaverview Mountain. The Board on Geographic Names says it's both of them. All that being said, there's a unique opportunity with the Board of Commissioners potentially not go through a long Board on Geographic Names route, but potentially just naming the park. And therefore, I think there's a unique opportunity with this specific to lean on y'all for naming rights. If that's something you think the Eastern Band elders would be open to advising on, just keep that in your back pocket. It's something I think could be a fun opportunity to bring in some more knowledge and wisdom from y'all into these spaces and recognize what these mountains have always been.
Yeah, appreciate it, Drew. Yeah, definitely. Given that we have Levita Hill now on council, we have Chanel Feather and my sister, who are all big advocate work, that have done a lot of advocacy work for a lot of these things that are all intertwined. I think definitely would be a good conversation to set up, and also bringing in the speakers council to look at that. And appreciate Drew for doing a lot. I know that the Buncombe County, one of the aspects of the website was really well done. Just having the ability to see some historical records that we might not have, as Cherokee people, aren't privy to because we're not in those systems or government. And that's one thing I also try to highlight is that we are not going to do all the work, and we really appreciate when people see us and look for us and are doing it on behalf of us, and then say, hey, I just did it because I thought this was right. This is the work I'm working on. Would you help me out with a little bit of it? That's where we see true kindness and allyship. Whereas some people are just like, I'm going to name this thing Cherokee Center. It's going to be the Cherokee Center without really including the community. So those are important steps that I think will always help in that advocacy and allyship. When you do it for the people, not for an organization. Like, I'm doing this for the Cherokee people, and at the foundation, I want them to know, like, hey, they might not want to name it. They might be like, hey, there might be another community in Asheville that like deserves some recognition in their history, or there might be a marker, a person that you know ideally would be a good representation of that namesake. And as Cherokee people stewards of land, we acknowledge that Asheville was more of our reserve. We didn't we our last settlement there was in the 1500s. We kind of grazed and lived there and kind of stayed over in Asheville, but it wasn't like a principal city like a lot of other places. And so what we do, given that we are the last federally recognized tribe in our homelands, we offer that a guidance and acknowledgement. So yeah, I'll be happy to do whatever and even connect, with you with everybody that would love to be a part of this. But yeah, I'd love to sit on those early, conversations and see what we can do.
Thank you so very much for all your wonderful sharing and all that you do and your awesome sister. And I'd like to know, as a teacher, what would you like to see change in the schools, elementary especially?
I think, and the Museum of the Cherokee People have done a pretty good job of expanding their educational outreach, where they do introduce like dances and songs. But one thing I do always acknowledge, and I think is missing in a lot of histories and educational models of Native people, is that there always has to be some type of Native iconography associated with it. There always has to be some historical component associated with it. We can't talk about contemporary. There's no educational models that are contemporarily talking about what this tribe's doing today. What do they look like today? The models are always based on like the Cherokee are here, they went on the Trail of Tears, end of story. And as a historian and as a lot of people that have been in our professors, educators, that there's non-existence or non-importance to like a Native chapter. So what I see with education in elementary school is like we got to give them the start to humanize Native people. We have to start not in an appreciation, because that can kind of get muddy. Because you might romanticize nativeness, whereas they might just start identifying as Native, and it's kind of becomes a problem. What we're trying to do is an appreciation in the sense of, man, I really feel for them, empathy. We lack, the fact that we dealt with all this woke, whatever, they're trying to destroy education. And I was like, I'm a Native guy. I was a Native kid that had to learn and feel empathy for U.S. colonist trying to intercede from the Empire of Britain. And I'm sitting reading things like, yeah, let's go, revolution, watching Mel Gibson's thing in school and creating pride in knowing that my people were dying at that time. My people were being massacred at that time. Like they were being destroyed, hunted, and killed. The same by the same people that now have road signs and mountains named after them. And so what we have to do is like we're not gonna do that to these kids. We're just showing what native life is so we can stop saying, hearing the comment, you were conquered. You guys were conquered. Get over it. I want kids to grow up to say, like, they weren't conquered. They did all this for us. And those are the educational models we have to have at a young age because that's where it starts. We dehumanize and desensitize kids so early on that war propaganda is seen as a plus. Capitalist propaganda is seen as a plus. And unfortunately, native identity and native empathy has fallen to the wayside because we don't meet those parameters in education models. So it really is just building up with our partners, reaching out and expanding our educational resources to where you guys can say, hey, here's a wonderful link with all these resources. You can do CEUs. We're trying to create more opportunities for CEUs for our regional partners, for educators in elementary schools, high schools, colleges to come in and learn what it's like to teach a tribal kid or to teach about tribal histories. And those are things that we can build off of as we move forward.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else? I've also been really concerned about this. I don't want the next generation to carry this guilt that we've all carried since the 60s about every kind of civil rights thing that I'm sure all of us have been involved in. I want to find a way, which started with the kids in our meeting. Is it possible that us go ahead and be interested in Indian culture and all the cool stuff that they see in it, the games and the dress and the behavior and the cool words. And we all live in a area where native speech is all around us, where I live. It uses Cherokee words for where we live. It's not a stranger to them. So I want to see the fun side of this for our kids without the burden. So that's why I love Beyond Land Management or acknowledgement, because there's nothing we can do about that except acknowledge it and just move on. We can't leave our homes and move Cherokee people into the South Toe Valley, which is actually from the Cherokee word Estatoa, which is very fun to tell kids about. I'm really looking for that kind of contact and new approach to between all the kids who are really interested in this.
Yeah, I think there has to be an understanding of what we're asking for. And like you alluded to, it's not about true reclamation of land base. We would just like to have more control of what's going on. It's really hard with language too, because it's the complexity of it. Like it's really hard to, you might know a word, but there's so much nuance to Cherokee language that nobody's ever going to be a master of Cherokee language unless you're a fluent speaker. There's no experts beyond a fluent speaker. I'm very knowledgeable in language and language bases and stems, but I'm no expert. And some fluent speakers will say they're not even fluent. But I think what we need to do is we don't have to bombard the world with like every little thing has to be named, every little thing has some Cherokee component to it, because histories are very rich, and there's a lot of injustices that have happened beyond land theft from Native people. There's a lot of atrocities that have happened in Weaverville with mountain folk. There's things in other places. I think we have to be at a point where we open the door to that mountain life One thing I like to acknowledge for a lot of people that are generational mountain folk here who've lived along the same lines of Cherokee people, not as long, but they've lived here for a long time. Understanding that we weren't mad at each other. There wasn't this racial divide. It's always been a class war. You look at the Civil War, it's a prime example of that class war. Mountain folk didn't care about the Civil War. How can you can't even afford to have, slaves and in the capacity that these large plantation owners are having. Same with Cherokee. Like our Cherokee people in this vicinity, in the Qualatown area and Snowbird area, weren't affluent like a lot of mountain folk. And so we're just surviving. So you have this war going on, this class war going on, and you're not part of it. You're just doing what you're told. And I think that's a misconception, and that's lacking in education with our kids too. I think we have to understand that everybody made moonshine around here. There was no rivalry. It wasn't better that Cherokee moonshine wasn't better than Maggie Valley moonshine. It was just like everybody was surviving, you know, prohibition, and making corn whiskey or whatever it is. There's so much more nuanced history that I think there's anger in it. I think that you're saying, like, how do we make it to where it's more about the appreciation? And I think we have to talk more about the interconnected kind of melting pot that what is the mountains. How our Black communities are so instrumental in bluegrass and folk and dance, and they lived very different lives than Native people did. So I think we have to open the door to acknowledge you know the the variety of suffering, but also the what we got out of that. That's been co-opted a lot. I think for a long time Maggie Valley just was on the big hillbilly phase of like we're a hillbilly town and we tourist for that's our tourism base. But we have to show the good and kind interconnectedness of that. So like I said, it doesn't have to all be Cherokee, Cherokee, Cherokee. It can be a melting pot of true understanding because, rib baskets, they're not Cherokee. We learned them from Southern folk around here. And we made some Cherokee rib basket. We made them Cherokee. We Zolligized them. Now there was a specific type of rib basket that's Cherokee, but that was learned from them. We didn't black vase pottery isn't from Cherokee. That's Catawba. The wedding vases aren't Cherokee. That was given us by Pueblos. So there has to be an understanding that not everything has to be bombarded or make kids feel bad or say like you don't belong on this land. As long as you care for the land like we do and you fight for the same things, no data centers, anti-AI, all this, hey, you're my neighbor. You're protecting us because we don't have that space or that capacity or that privilege to do it. So that's kind of where we have to be at.
Jakeli, I think this room is a group of well-intentioned, mostly white people who love to help in any way that we can. And sometimes well-intentioned white people who want to help do more than good. Are there any indigenous efforts you want us well-intentioned white people to uplift? And if there are a group of people around, if there's things we can do that you want us to do harmful, that let us know. I think you've got some of the sweetest humans in the room in the town right now who'd love to help you see areas where you guys want us to lean on public officials or community members. Know that you've got this group, and it doesn't have to come to mind now, but well-intentioned white people who want to help.
For me, it's a big representation matters. If you feel like, and as you all know, having the empathy of what you want as this alliance, just simply saying like, we need to bring somebody in, at this conversation, or, they're talking about, you all know and you'll care. So use your judgment, but now that maybe having like talked to Shannon, and making headways, for me, it's like representation is paramount. Like we need to be in conversations at the beginning, not the end. And so like as like well-intentioned, it's just like, hey, just just be out there doing what you're doing. Like again, we don't have, that's why allyship's so important. We don't have the ability, the capacity to be in every space every day. And some things like we do now is like sometimes it's you well-intentioned non-native people who are standing up for us and holding it down till we can get in part of those spaces. Like you question the system, you question the movement, you question things, just saying, hey, this doesn't seem like it's very right. It doesn't seem like we should be doing this. And then it opens the door for that conversation. That's kind of where I see the allyship with non-natives is like, hey, when some days I'm like, somebody said, hey, there was an incident. One of there was like after our girls played a non-native school down in Macon County, some group of kids made this Instagram page and was saying really derogatory things. And being in my platform, people start reaching out, hey, did you see this? They're doing this. And so I kind of pause, there's a lot of nuance and it's students and like, how can I go and talk to my superintendent to talk to their superintendent? But when I talk to somebody in my community, like, oh, don't worry about that. It's deleted, it's gone. Somebody, and there's a couple of kids in the school system where it's like, no, that's messed up. We have Cherokee kids here. Like, why are you talking about them? You're talking about them as well. So I didn't have to do anything. And when somebody asked me, I was like, no, there's kids in that school that are non-native that stood up for the tribe and stood up for the fellow classmates who are Cherokee. So those are the well-intentioned things that alleviate some of that pressure that doesn't need our complete oversight. But just keep doing what you're doing, having empathy, having the capacity to include us in these things. That's all I ask for.
Any of you are not aware of what Jakeli was talking about when he said when our girls played at the school in Macomb County, the Cherokee girls basketball team just won the state championship in North Carolina, and and they scored like 10 times as many points as the other team in the championship game. It was incredible. But I assume, Jakeli, that's who you were talking about when you said when our girls played at the school in Macon County.
Yes. And
Yeah.
of course, my little niece, me and Shannon's little niece, is Di as a senior and going off to run at Hawaii. And my brothers created a good foundation for her culturally and linguistically. But yeah, it's just what we want. We plant seeds, create friendships, create bonds, because the existence of Eastern Band was a lot of our neighbors writing great letters of recommendation of how well we were as people and we deserve to be recognized. So we don't forget that, that's something that I think gets lost in it. And me being biracial, my mom's from Polk County, like, so I have a white side, it's like, I can't, you always can't be so extreme. You have to understand that not everything existed, or we always had to have allies to do what we needed to do, and well-intentioned allies. And I think that's what we're striving for today.
Appreciate that. I also had a question that I wanted to bring to you. Our Quaker meeting here, the Asheville Friends meeting, we're forming a relationship with the Center for Native Health. And recently we had Dr. Adcock here at our meeting to talk to us about the work that was being done there. And it was such a revelation to, and just like your talk here with us today, Jakeli, to hear and to learn that just this vastly different perspective, this whole different context on the way that things are described, like what does health mean? And it was just beautiful to hear Trey talk about that, just this totally different approach to health that, many of us white people are kind of dabbling in those ideas in terms of what we call holistic health. But it was Trey's perspective, and the perspective of the Center for Native Health was just such a revelation. But what I wanted to ask you is if you would take a couple of minutes to describe to us what medicine means. Because we often hear that word used, when we talk to Native people, Cherokee or otherwise, they say, well, this is good medicine. And I'm pretty sure it doesn't mean pills in a bottle.
Yeah, medicine for us can be a plethora of things. It doesn't have to just be sometimes it's a plant, sometimes it's a phrase or an act of a traditional act, a custom. It's just basically when we talk about medicine, it's basically what that represents. If we see a plant like, oh, that's medicine for a cold, that's good. That's good medicine for this. And a lot of mountain folk know it too because they watched us and learned from us. But when we talk about medicine, good medicine, sometimes it's just well being. A reset. Um, Medicine is, and this is a big thing about our medicine is like it doesn't work if you don't believe it's going to work. I think that's a concept people don't understand is when you give you something and we say it's just this, and you're like kind of skeptical and like it's just a weed, it's not going to work. That's it's you didn't create an openness for your body to accept it, and this isn't and make believe. There are scientists who have broken down some of these plants and say, oh, they have these medicinal properties. Yeah, of course it does that. Dandelion roots can help with liver and all that, cleanse as a cleanser and all that. Just little simple things, little weeds that you think of. But to us, it's like they didn't get better because they didn't believe they were gonna get better. It's all about Tohi, as Tom Belt talks about, well balanced. You're at peace. Tohi, Tohi, I'm at good peace. I'm here. I'm balanced. That's something when you talk about medicine. It's a blanket term. It can mean a lot of things. Like as alluded, it's not a pill. It's not a syrup. It can be a poultice. It can be a tea. It can be all these other things. It can just be an act, a custom, and that's medicine. So medicine is a blanketed term. But when you hear it from my mother-in-law, there's, rabbit tobacco. And we just said, I got some rabbit tobacco. And she goes, oh yeah, that's medicine. And we knew it's an anti-inflammatory. But she knew and she didn't ever tell us. She just said it. So when you hear the word medicine, it can be that plant, but if it's like, oh, that's medicine, they got medicine on it. There's something on it that is sacred. And there's differing values. Some medicine is public medicine. Like if you can use it recreationally, but there's medicine that you're not allowed to know about. You're not allowed to pry or understand. Like when they say, "Oh, that's medicine," you're like, "Oh, I'll leave that alone then." Oh, that place has medicine. No, you don't go there. That's unless you know that medicine. So there are varying degrees of what medicine is, but like you said, it's not the colonial or the concept of modern concept, contemporary concept of it's a take 4 a day and your headache, but don't exceed 12 or something, 24-hour period. It's nothing like that. It's just whatever your body can withhold and what you believe your body can accept. That's what our medicine is. No wolt is what we call it.
Okay, we're sort of running out of time, but are there any last questions, comments for Jakeli?
I have one. Do you find that the kids in the Cherokee school are interested in learning about Cherokee history and culture?
Yeah, we're in an identity crisis right now. Communal spaces have disappeared. So we're working in a crisis. Our mental health is we're seeing an uptick in some really bad mental say suicides and things like that. And like a lot of Native communities, we've actually been very fortunate as a Native community not to deal with the same staggering statistics of teen suicides and like deep depression. But now we're seeing that we've all dealt with deep depression. We've always dealt with traumas, and not always historical traumas. It's just generational ones. Um, so with that identity crisis, a lot of kids we're trying to revamp it and bring it back. But the problem is that learning culture and language is an apprenticeship. It takes years and years to even feel like where I'm at now is I'm always learning. I'm always retuning and refining myself. And that's, been 3 decades of just 3.5 decades of just constant. Okay, I'm not, this is something new I need to know. But I will say that the Cherokee Central School System is the only school system that can give that identity to our kids. And that's the battle we're doing and what we're fighting for is that there's nowhere else. Because I worked in a public school for 5 years. Um, my daughters go to school down there, and when I was with my ex-wife, I lived down there and worked in there, and that was very very hard to do because I didn't feel I felt the disconnect between my identity and a school system. Whereas at Cherokee Central Schools, we blend it. It's paramount. Like you can't graduate high school unless you take Cherokee language. Now, a lot of kids just take it as like pass. I just gotta pass it. They might not truly understand it because a lot of those kids that we struggled with are now in the adult language program. And I was like, if you would just listen to us, then you would have been a lot further along. But it is what it is. But with an identity crisis, we always have to fine tune what we're doing. We offer things. We are the only school system that has the ability to meet those parameters of identity, but it's also reflecting on what we're doing. So what I always advocate, and I still advocate, is that language doesn't come easy, culture doesn't come easy. Please take the time to listen. I always say how Tundasta, like you listen. He's a Tundasta. You all listen. We don't talk. We listen. We watch. We observe. We don't. We're not at the front of the panel until we're ready. Unless we are being told to be at the front of the panel by somebody. Like, hey, can you go talk for me? I don't like being in front of a crowd. Oh yeah, I'll do that for you. But what I'm seeing a lot with the identity crisis is that a lot of people find just a little bit and they go out in the world. And like I said with Tohi, they're not ready for what comes in. And it's just so weakened. And that's what I see with our kids because we don't have a lot more. We've lost a lot of communal spaces that we're building back up. They just don't have they're still fragile because they don't have that backing of having a long lineage of family to go back to. Like I grew up around all my aunts and uncles and cousins. A lot of kids grow up in a one person household and a live off boundary. So school system definitely can help, but it's also building up the identity and strength in our understanding of who we are.
I'd like to spend the last few minutes of our meeting today just to offer gratitude for being together and for being in the presence of Jakeli and for having shared what we had the opportunity to share today. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to pass this microphone out to y'all, and anybody who wants to speak can raise your hand, and whoever has the mic can pass it on. And if we sit in silence, that's okay, because some of us are Quakers and we know about silence. But let's just spend a few minutes expressing our gratitude in whatever way we choose.
Jakeli, it's an honor to be in your presence and to see the genuineness with which you communicate. It's very inspiring. Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming, Mary Ann. You can also express appreciation for what we're doing in this organization, which has been really quite a journey and still going on. I have a question for you, Drew. You knew that was coming, right? How's it going with the website? Any plans to expand on that or do something with it?
So one thing I think that's really important as we're getting to a lot of celebrations about the American 250, we're just going to see a lot of anniversaries and a lot of history productions. And I think it's really important for my office, who deals with land records, to continually center how Buncombe County became Buncombe. What Jakeli was speaking of earlier was a website some of y'all may have seen, which is dealing with how Buncombe became Buncombe. And it goes back to the origin stories of what happened before the first deeds were recorded in my office. And it tells a broader story of the American Revolution being a large land grab from the Cherokee. And so as we're seeing these American 250 events, something my office is trying to wrestle with is how do we recognize what our true story is and where we came from and the land that we sit on. So that's a roundabout way of saying we're working on some things. Absolutely. Jakeli, since I'm holding the mic, just appreciate you and the challenging work that you guys always try and do and trying to help well-intentioned Ashevilleans try and, I don't know, uplift the work that you guys do. And I don't know, we really are grateful for you taking some time to just be here and educate us today.
Thank you so much, Drew. Oops, sorry.
Thank you for being with us today. This is my first time in this group. I'm from CELO, Friends meeting, Quaker meeting. One takeaway from your words today that's important to me is that with the idea, I mean, we're here to go beyond land acknowledgement, but land acknowledgement is a beginning. And in our land acknowledgement, especially in our valley, which was a sacred space to the Cherokee people, we understand, is to be responsible stewards for it, to take responsibility for it and preserve it and do that in conjunction with and cooperation with the Cherokee people. So thank you.
Thank you for coming from CELO, and you too, Bob. It's a long way.
Jakeli, I'm almost embarrassed to ask you this because I've been trying to figure it out. Can you please tell me, should we use the word Indian? Should we use the word Native American? What is it that we should use that would be respectful and preferred?
Native is what I use for a generalization. Indian kind of been referred back to our community says Indian, but it's kind of our own take on being called it so much because the Eastern Band is EBCI, last part Indian. But I like to use native. It's a good John Trudell, quote of we're older than America. How can we be native to something that we predate? So we cut off America and we put native. You say indigenous, but it became too much of a buzzword. And then also just acknowledging them as the unique tribe we are. If it is Shawnee land, it's the Shawnee tribe. This is Eastern Band Cherokee. This is EBCI. Or this is just really acknowledging, if not, but if it's a generality of like we're talking about the scope of all natives, we just say native. It just for us, it's like we had a kind of a double-edged sword of like, what do you like we prefer, Native American or American Indian? And I'm like, we're neither. Like America didn't exist when we existed, so we just cut it off. But I preferably like hearing Native. It just sounds cleaner, nicer. Um, I mean, in conversation I have with other people in here, we might say speaking Indian or something like that, but we don't necessarily like it expanding because it's like it's just again that marker of see they like it too because I'm a big anti mascot native mascot advocate. I don't like them, and a lot of times it's thrown in my face that we use it, so it shouldn't be that like we should be okay with it. And I just don't like doing the explanations. Like, can you just call us natives? Because it's nicer anyways. It's good native. The native people. I think it gets lost because people say I'm a native of Idaho. I'm a native of North Carolina, and we're like we're the
Okay,
originator.
great.
Yeah.
That sounds doable. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. Harold.
Just to be clear, Jakeli is Cherokee. He is a citizen of the Eastern Band. It's always polite to ask a person, what is your nationality? Most of us would say we're Americans, but we've gotten used to being called white.
It's 11:30. Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna get going. If please feel free to share my website and my Instagram if you want any questions, follow up. My email is on my website if you want any, or they can. I think some of the people here have my email. If you have any follow-up questions or want interested in anything else I can help provide or guidance or conversation, please let me know. But I'm gonna get headed out. I'm gonna try to run down to that 5K and hang out with them for a little bit. But I appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much. Ski. Oh, need that down behind you.
Jakeli.
I noticed that one of our Zoom participants was asking about seeing Jakeli's artwork and designs, and of course that's on his website. We do have his website address and his Instagram address, and those will be posted on the listserv and on our website. Our website, of course, not up yet, but everybody who subscribes to the listserv be looking for that. And everybody who doesn't subscribe to the listserv, subscribe.
Yes, in fact, I was going to say when you signed in today, if you're not yet on the listserv, if you could just put a little note with your name, add me to the listserv, and I will send you an invitation. You have 14 days to respond, and then you'll automatically get all of the postings that we do. Until we have a website, that's what we have. But we don't deluge you with emails. It'll just be occasional announcements of events. There are quite a few interesting things coming up in Cherokee. And Amy's been doing some things at Western Carolina that have been fabulous. So we want to try to keep you abreast of those kinds of offerings too. And if you have something, once you're a member of the listserv, if you have something to share with the group, you can put it on there too. Or if you have a question about something. So we really thank you all for coming today. This has been a really helpful meeting to meet with Jakeli and to hear about his work. Yes, John.
It's www. Around the Bend 828.com.
So that would be all one word, around the bend. Around the bend, B-E-N-D, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. We also have some refreshments left, so please help yourselves and visit a little. That's what I thought. It's around the bend. Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming today on the Zoom. We really appreciate your being here.
Okay, I'm closing up the Zoom call. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Yes.